So in his presser yesterday, Coach Jeff Lebby basically confirmed everything you all feared as Sooner fans that happened in the SMU game. Now, it's not something that's just bad, but it was something that you all noticed and was not very happy about. And honestly, for the most part, I wasn't, but I figured there was a reason, and there was. Also, he talked a little bit about the running back room, and I'm going to dive into that a little bit later, so make sure you stick around for that. But before we dive into the Lebby presser, welcome to Unfair Sports. I'm your host, Jay. Thanks for pulling up to the channel. Let's dive into what Coach Lebby was talking about yesterday in his presser that really stood out about what they're trying to do here at Oklahoma. One thing to really pay attention to here is Lebby, I'm not going to bury the lead. Let's dive into that portion of it. Coach Lebby mentioned that they were very conservative in this game going up against SMU. And that was the one thing you all really took from the way the game was called. There was no aggression, not enough passes deep, not enough push. There was a lot that was going on that just did not make sense. It didn't feel right as far as the way the offense was going, especially after that Arkansas State win. And so Coach Lebby basically addressed that and pointed out that, hey, we were conservative. We should have been a little bit more aggressive. And there was some things that we were trying to do. He was wanting to get more touches in the hands of Tyree Walker as well as Marcus Major. And he praised that running back room too. And that's something to really think about. He pointed out how there's at least 4 guys in that room. He has a stable of backs that they feel comfortable and they trust. Not something that most people can say about their team. We've got a 4 deep when it comes to running back. And you saw a lot of 21 personnel, which 2 tight ends, 1 running back. And that was another thing that was a topic of discussion. And getting Blake Smith out there and getting him some opportunities was key in trying to grow and see what we have going forward, especially as we prepare ourselves for Big 12 play. And so I know you as fans was a little bothered that offensively we didn't go out there and toss up Arkansas State numbers again. But it was pointed that SMU is not a bad football team just by name, but overall they're not. The other thing that Lebby pointed out, which I thought was really intriguing, was that you didn't see many deep passes because they kept a 1 deep safety the entire game. As in, they were prepared for the deep ball. Their entire game plan was the deep ball. And so as the game progresses and we saw that in the 4th, we let SMU get the game within 3 points, and then Lebby decided to flip the switch, go aggressive, and we scored instantly, and then we scored again right afterwards. And that was definitely something that perturbed a lot of you Sooner fans. It perturbed me as well, is that it can be reckless whenever you go out there and you just decide to flip your switch on some opponents. But the good thing is that against this opponent, last year, we probably would have lost this game. This would have been one of those games that would have faltered because something just did not work out right. And Lebby recognized that. He pointed out that the goal moving forward is to be more aggressive. The goal is to definitely put up the points and take advantage of the talent we have out there. Now, another thing that I did notice from you all in my comments that he addressed was we talked about Jaquez Pettaway not really getting any touches. Neither did Jaden Gibson or Nick Anderson. And Lebby basically laid out that, with Drake Stoops back, they wanted to let the older guys get some run, let them get some game here, because based upon the way I read between those lines is the more we get into Big 12 play, the more we're going to play the best players on the field and not just the guys that we have that have seniority. And I think that's something that we should not only commend, but understand. You don't want to use up those players in games that you should easily win. We did cover the spread, so that is technically considered easily winning. And have them ready to play against the big boys. When we travel to Cincinnati in 2 weeks, that's going to be a huge game. I expect to see ramp up against Tulsa. And for us, attrition is going to be critical. This is the first time that Oklahoma has had a lot of depth that we felt comfortable with. And so a Pettaway not getting many touches, Gibson and Nick Anderson getting a little bit of game is more so resting upon the need to establish physicality. And Lebby mentioned that in the presser, talking about Tyree Walker and getting him running as well as Marcus Major. But then there was also questions that you all had, and I'm glad you stuck around for this, because we were wondering about Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk. Now, we know that they both went into fall camp banged up. And so you had problems health-wise. And so for Lebby, he wanted to leverage the other two backs to make sure that we've got an established 4 deep, so that if those two players who are dealing with dingers right now do need to sit a game, we've got reliable backup. Now, granted, we still also have Caleb Higgs, Dylan Smothers. We're still waiting to see Emeka Megwa, see if he's healthy. We've still got got Champ McCown. So we've got a long list of players that could potentially go out there and do something. But the question is how healthy do we want to make sure that we have Barnes and Sawchuk as we prepare for Big 12 play? And so he stated in the presser that he's going to get them more touches and get them ramped up. And so I anticipate a lot more Sawchuk, a lot more Barnes in the Tulsa game, more than this game, but probably as much as we saw them in Arkansas State. You may see about 10 to 12 carries each. I expect us to run the ball even more in that game and really get going, because the other piece that Lebby closed out really on was the offensive line missing assignments and not really winning the one-on-ones that we needed to win in that game. Granted, SMU has a lot of potential defensive linemen draft-wise. I mean, I think that draft grades we're giving out on those defensive linemen, probably the 4 of them could make it in one of the late rounds in the draft. So they've got players that have NFL potential, especially as a lot of them did transfer from larger programs like Miami, Texas A&M, LSU. You got a long list of players that came in. And so the line needs to be able to win their battles. And that's the thing that Lebby emphasized. And so the anticipation is that a lot of reps are going to be taken in practice, in which I've heard some news. They're pushing, more aggression in practice for not only the offensive line and their blocking schemes, as well as the wide receivers going out there and making those catches. So that's kind of what I saw from Lebby and what I felt like made sense from the presser. He said a lot more. You can make sure you check it out. I dropped a link in the description below for y'all to check out. But hop in the comments. Let me know. How do you feel? What do you think is going to happen in the Tulsa game? Let's put some predictions out there. I want to see what Oklahoma does against them, because I believe that once we get into that game against Tulsa, we'll see us go after that 26.5 point spread. Because remember this, in the old regime, they were basically about 500 when it comes to covering the spread. 30, I think it was 30-30-1. We're looking at 2-0 against the spread this season, and the goal is to continue to do that. If you've made it this far, you like the content, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Love to have you join us here on the channel. And so YouTube says watch one of these videos. We've got a lot more coming down the line. We're preparing for Tulsa. We've moved on to Tulsa. We won't talk about the Lebby Arbrow situation, because that's the only time you're going to hear me mention it. We'll talk soon. Peace.